Hey everybody, got another great episode for you today. We got an interview today with Meagan Hesham. Meagan is an author, but she did something not a lot of people try. She started playing hockey for the first time in her mid to late 30s alongside her kids when they were learning to play. So it really gave us a lot of perspective and great conversation into what it's like for someone to play this game on the other side of their youth. So it's a great conversation, amazing nuggets of information here. So make sure you listen to it. And if you haven't done so already, if you could please give us a 5-star review or a review in general, wherever you listen to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or if you watch it on Facebook or YouTube, it really does help us out a lot. And we know that you support us by your great comments and your great emails that we get. It's just another great way to do it. So if you have the moment to do that, we really appreciate it. But without further ado, in the meantime, enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined today by my good friend, my favorite person, Christie Burns. Mike Benelli is on assignment, and we have a special guest today in his absence. Meagan Hesham is the author of the upcoming book, Hockey A, True Confessions of a Midlife Rink Rat, which comes out June 20th everywhere. I think I nailed that the way I said that. She's also a dancer, choreographer, writer, and self-confessed fitness geek. And she is a loving wife and mother to her sons, Zach and Jed. So Meagan gave us a sneak peek into her new book. And I have to tell you, every single chapter tracks with what we talk about on this show. It's pretty incredible. But what sticks out the most is that Meagan did something that I wish more hockey parents would do. She picked up a stick, skates, and equipment and learned to play the game herself. And we are going to dive into that today because there's a lot to learn here. Meagan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
No, we're excited to have you. When we got our hands on this book, it was kind of obvious that we had to have you on as fast as possible because I'm like, every single chapter in this book is something we've spoken about. But what stood out to me right away from your story is that you're as Canadian as they come. You're Canadian, your parents are Canadian, your grandparents are Canadian, but you didn't seem to find hockey until a little later in your life. So what I want you to do, because I didn't want to do this for you, take our audience through that story of how you discovered the game, because it's pretty unique.
Okay, yes. So I started out not feeling very Canadian. I was super unsporty. I was a girly girl. When I had kids and I had, boys, I was like, what? Boys? I'm not sure. So I'm a dancer. I did dance all my childhood. I didn't know what hockey was. I mean, I know hockey, it's our sport. But I hadn't watched a game. I hadn't played any sports. I was just totally unsporty. So starting out from that, and then I had kids, and my first son started playing hockey because my Egyptian husband was like, he has to play hockey. It's so Canadian. Yay. He loved it. And I was like, okay, whatever, sure. And then it started taking over. He got more and more serious. He was playing hockey all the time. We were at games. I was learning. I was starting to understand. I was starting to get into this whole hockey thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I love it. And eventually, yes, I watched him learn. And that gave me the kind of encouragement to go learn myself and see what it was all about myself too. So start playing hockey as an almost 40-year-old woman and learning from scratch. I'm still learning.
I don't know about you. And I've gone out on the ice with my kids, not in an actual game setting, but even that was intimidating.
I know.
Kind of skate with a stick and shoot the puck while people are flying at you. It's not easy. I can't imagine.
It is not. It's still not easy.
Yeah, especially at our age, right? Oh my God.
Because the falls are scary. You're like, it's.
Well, one of the things I always say, we talked about this a little bit before the show, is that it doesn't matter how in shape you are or aren't. When you get on the ice, it is a totally different muscle group, and it hurts. The first time you do it, it hurts.
Everything hurts. Yeah.
Right. That's a good way of looking at it.
Did you skate? Did you have some basic skating?
I mean, I skated in girly skates, in figure skates as a child. So I did grow up with very Canadian parents, but that I don't know that helped me at all.
And it was
into hockey skates. I don't know.
As you alluded to, your husband's courtship that actually got you somewhat into the game. I'd love for you to explain that a little, because it's, again, I read your book. I love that part about how you felt not intimidated, it's not the right word, but he came to you like hockey. And you're like, yeah, that's a thing we do here.
And it kind of came out of nowhere. Like I had known him for years. I didn't know that he was such a hockey lover. But when he first came to Canada, it was all hockey, hockey, hockey. He was out of school. Everyone played hockey. He didn't play. He wanted to. It was like, I want to do this Canadian thing, right? And so when we had a kid, it all came out. Oh, well, he's going to learn to skate. He's going to play hockey. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Sure. Right. And so he kind of made us all, hockey fans. And it was amazing that he was not Canadian. I was super Canadian. And he showed me this world of my own country, basically like, oh, look what this is, and still does till this day, right? He pushed me out into my first game. He made sure I went in that arena because I was like, I don't know.
It's intimidating.
How did it change your perspective?
On
just sitting in the stands
a lot. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You probably hear comments from other parents and you look at them and you have a little bit more knowledge because you've been there and done that.
Definitely. And I always tell all hockey parents, like, if you haven't skated or played hockey, like, just go try it. Like, even if it's just once, like, just go try it, see what it's like, see, how, not just how hard it is, but just like all the circumstances and like what you're yelling down there might not make any sense. Like both hands on the stick. Well, not always, not like they're rushing to get up there. They need to pump their arms. Like, I don't know. Right. And just people around me yelling things. I'm like, and also, how hard you are on your child in hockey sometimes, right? It really softens that a bit when you're like, okay, he can't skate harder. Maybe he's skating his hardest, like skate hard. If someone was yelling that at me and I'm like, I am skating my hardest, it might not look that way. Sometimes you are, and you can't skate harder. Like, so just, it changed my perspective totally, because I'd be like, why isn't he doing this? And why isn't he doing that? You start playing hockey and I start telling my husband, well, this is why I think.
I gotta tell you, I remember, Christie, you might remember this years ago. I think it was Budweiser did those, real men of genius commercials. And one of my favorite ones was it was a sarcastic commercial, right? Totally parody. And it's here's to you, super fan. You shout such great things as go faster and shoot the puck. And it was just making fun of those because we always joke on this show about people screaming, shoot the puck. It's like, there's a time and a place.
Obviously, At some point we will shoot it.
Yeah. The other thing you mentioned too about, parents trying the game, parents who haven't skated, which by the way, we're not judging anyone who hasn't played or can't play. There's a lot of reasons not to do it. Don't get me wrong. Time restrictions. But it's funny because when you talk to an adult, the fears are exactly the same as the 6-year-old. Well, I might fall down. I don't know how to skate. I don't know anybody out there.
Right.
It's the same thing. So I want to rewind back because I love that you did this. A quick story for both of you that actually, Christie, you don't even know this one too. My son is 8 years old now. And he's starting to we're butting heads a little bit, right? I don't have a problem admitting that. I love him more than anything in the world and my daughter. But he's getting into video games a little bit to a frustrating point. And a friend of mine, a coworker, actually suggested, he said, why don't you play with him? And I said, that's actually a really fair point. So I learned the game he's playing and, I'm playing with him now. Right. And it's the same thing. He's better at the game than I am. So I really had to kind of put all ego aside, not that there was much there, and be like, teach me this. And we still butt heads a little bit in the game, but hey, we're doing something together. Right. And he loves that I play the game with him. So I want you to walk us through, Meagan, the moment that clicked, because what I love in your book is, again, you walk us through getting the equipment for the first time and going Canadian Tire and then almost making a stick and then getting the wrong stick. Again, everyone listening should pick up this book just because you're going to all relate to the story. But tell me the moment where that droplet in your head of, hey, you know what? Maybe I should try this, because I think that perspective is massive. And I think that it's very brave of you to do that. Not enough people do.
Yeah, I don't even know. We were I think it was when my son was getting super, super like into it. He was like getting on an A team. It was like becoming a real thing we did almost every day. And we were at a stick and puck, like just at the community center practicing. He was practicing his shots, this and that. My husband and I were trying to skate or something. Just trying to understand, like, oh, let's try skating. And I don't know, I just, I had a stick. I was trying stuff out. I couldn't even stop. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was holding it, and I felt, I don't know, I felt something come over me, and I was like, I feel I love trying hard things. Like, I love trying things that are really difficult for me. All my life, I've just always wanted to kind of like do those things that are like, this seems impossible. Like, you're on blades, this tiny puck, you got this, like, you're on ice, you're slipping around. I'm like, this is so hard. This might be something I want to try. And I think it took almost a year of kind of thinking, maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to do this. And then I signed up, and just, I don't know, I threw myself in there, and then the rest was history. Once I threw myself into hockey and playing on a team, and like, obviously I learned to skate a little bit before joining a team, not too much. I was still pretty,
that's what we tell the kids to do. That's what we tell the kids.
And that's what happened. I saw my son, not very good at skating, join hockey, get amazing at skating, just through that, right? Through drills. And I was like, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to try. So I think it was just that I was just practicing out there. And then I saw him, he's so good. I'm like, wow, he developed so much. I want to try this out for myself. I love physical stuff. So, it was right up my alley. And then I thought this could be a family thing, right? Like, let's all play hockey. It's going to be like a whole, thing. I've tried to force my husband to act, because he's the one that makes us all do it. I'm like, you need to do this, like, come on. But yeah, it's again, scared of falling, and back hurts and feet hurt, and it's hard as an older person.
So when your kids come and watch you play, do they yell out, "Mom, shoot the puck"?
Hard.
I think there's a lot of laughing. There's a lot of like, wow, you guys are slow.
But I bet in their eyes, you're like the queen now.
I don't know. I play badly.
You've got to be super impressed, I would think.
I'm not sure. They don't get to many games, because obviously my games are usually at like 10 o'clock at night, really late at night. But they've both been to my games. My husband's been to my games a few times in my life. And there was just a lot of like laughing, and like maybe like high fives and a ha ha ha. It's good, because my son can then give me critiques, right? He came the other day alone and watched me, and I love it, because I'm like, you know what? I said things to you for years, coming home in the car when we shouldn't have, things like that, like, why me and my husband, and now you can tell me, like, why didn't you do that? Why would you go there?
I was gonna
why
ask,
aren't you keeping the puck in?
from a like almost a beyond hockey point of view, how has this affected the relationship with your kids, as mother and sons, right? Like, again, like I love what you're saying about the car ride home, that he's kind of giving it back a little bit, but
I get
you feel
now,
like that this experience has from a parent's point of view, has it made you closer with your kids? Open up communication. Tell us about that.
Of course. Yeah. With my first son, I mean, he's older now, and we could talk hockey. I come home from my game, I'm like, what should I do when this happens? So it's really awesome. Like, I get advice from him. I don't give him advice anymore. He's an awesome hockey player. I'm like, what should I do when I'm in this circumstance? Because I'm still new. I've been playing years, but I'm still like, I don't know. I just throw the puck away at that point. What should I do? So we have that. We have like, he's like, did you win? Did you lose? How'd it go? So we have that nice connection, which is awesome. And he's a teenager now, so it's cool. He comes to my games, he critiques me, all this stuff. And with my younger one, I have a really cool connection too, because I relearned to skate with him. Like, he was learning to skate, and I was going and bettering my skating, basically. So we were together, kind of working on our edging, working on all this stuff. And now I take him to his early morning games alone. We have quality time. He knows I play. I'm with him when he plays. So it is a really like warm, fuzzy feeling.
But and just for some perspective, Christie, again, Zach is 13. So I don't know many 13-year-old young boys that want to hang out with their mom. So that's pretty cool to begin with. And then Jad is 6, I believe you said. So yeah, so that's a really cool connection point at 2 really different development stages.
It really is. It really is. I love it.
It's fantastic. I wish more.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn into another direction, because I know this is really important for you, Meagan, because prior to recording, you said you wanted to talk about this. This was very important to you. Kind of ugly. It's not beautiful, like we just talked about your relationship with your boys, but there's an element of racism in hockey now that you wanted to share with our listeners and our viewers, your concerns, and address it. So let's get it out there before we get too late. We don't have time, because this is important.
Okay, yeah. So I think there's an element in hockey that gets swept under the rug a lot of the time. And because I'm a blended family of Arabic and Canadian here, people don't think anything of it, and they see me as this super Canadian person. They can say all sorts of things to me, yet we have a whole and they even say it to my husband, right? So there's a lot of as we were talking at the start, kind of ignorant things being said sometimes racially, and jokes from coaches and stuff like that. We've had a lot of that where it's just kind of
specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we've had a lot of things. We've had a lot of the ignorant type things where people are making jokes about certain cultures and stuff. And we're like, what culture do they think we are? Like, we are something
right.
Why are you saying that to us even?
And it's so hurtful.
And it's hard because people laugh along, and then I'm like, why are people laughing? And people have said things straight out to my husband at times, and he's like, who do they think I am? Like, what is happening? And it's not like, oh, I hate this, I hate that. It's like some joke or just, and people saying things about other coaches that might not be, super white Canadian person, and they're saying things like, oh, what is he doing coaching? Things like that. And I'm like, this has to change, and it's amazing to see, because there is change, I think, slowly coming. Maybe, the organizations here are talking about diversity and trying to fix these problems. I've talked to lots of people about this, and the HDA, I think, is an amazing thing with their Tape Out Hate and all these campaigns that's bringing a bit more awareness. Like, I feel like that's where it needs to go, where people need to be aware, because I'll talk to other hockey parents and they'll be like, what are you talking about? Racism? What? Because they're not aware. They're not in that. I don't know if they're not thinking that way, but I'm aware, and I'm like, I would love to bring this up to people that might not be aware, because some of us are very aware.
So here's your opportunity. What would you like people to know? And I know a big part of it is think before you speak, before you open your mouth, right?
Yeah, and just I guess seeing people, I mean, it's a world thing, right? Not just thinking before you speak, but also just don't think, stop thinking that way. It's hard. I mean, it's not something we can just take care of like that, but just having an awareness of this is happening in this world. It is happening, even though people are even people who are getting the comments, I think sometimes are sweeping it under the rug, because they're like, I don't want to be seen as different. I don't want to be not a hockey person. I don't want to bring up that they made a comment about my turban or something, you know what I mean? So they're like, whoa, sweep it under the rug. I am just like all of you. And so I think that's where sometimes people don't come out about it. They just want to be like, no, I'm like everyone else.
Yeah.
And
Meagan, I'll say this too. We talked before the episode about this too, that I think inherently most people are not racist, but there's a lot of ignorance out there. And here's the deal. We're all ignorant to what we don't understand. Everyone,
definitely,
myself included, right? And it's till you kind of admit that to yourself that change is not possible till you admit that to yourself. I'm in a blended family as well. I learned a lot about my wife's culture that I was insanely ignorant about until in it. I'm a man. I was very ignorant to the plight of women for many years. Until I started talking to women about it, and even asking questions like, for both of you, this is a discovery for me of, I remember during the Me Too movement of asking my wife, hey, has this ever happened to you? And I was shocked at the answer. Right. And I said, well, what did you do? And learning that it's not easy for a woman or anybody that's not, in the same circle to say, hey, stop it. That's not as easy as people think.
Yeah.
I was interviewing a young man, 17-year-old AAA player of Arabic descent. And he told me that one of his teammates and friends jokingly said, "Hey, good luck getting through the airport."
Yeah.
And he started crying in front of me when he said that. He was so
Yeah.
hurt by this, and he couldn't say anything at the time. And his friend, who is ignorant, did not realize how much pain he had caused his friend. Now, I'm sure that if he brought that up, it would change. But that's the type of stuff we're talking about. Sometimes we say things and we do things, you just don't realize it's insanely hurtful to somebody else. And then not be in a position to stand up for themselves like you think they should. That's one of those things. So
definitely.
We talk about on the show a lot. You talk about it too. You know, you have to recognize that if you are not outside your little circle, you're not going to experience anything that someone else does. And that's, to me, part of the key. Go talk to someone different and ask multiple questions, and they'll be happy to answer, and vice versa. Right. This goes all directions. And this is a global thing, not just an American or Canadian thing.
Right.
Go ahead.
And really important in hockey, because you think about how much time we all spend together. We're such close-knit hockey teams. You're on the road together, you're out of town together, you're going to dinners together, you're spending so much time together. That sensitivity and awareness is so needed. So you're like, why are you talking about it in the hockey? Well, think of what you're in, as you're part of a family in hockey. Yeah. So you have to be accepting, you have to be loving if you're going to make it through the season comfortably and make everyone feel welcomed. I mean, hockey really is for everybody. And we need to make sure that we're sending that message, especially in the beginning of the season, right from the start.
Yeah. And just seeing, I guess on teams I've been on, I see people on the outskirts and not being welcomed in. And it's usually, you know, our types. And I'm just like, I can't even, it makes me so angry, right? Like there's these groups laughing and then there's like one or two parents over here and it's just not part of the group. And I'm just like, it's what you just said. Like we are going to be a family this year. So why not, you know, when you join a hockey team and you're thrown together all these days a week and you got to make it work or else it's not going to be nice for anyone really in the end. Right. I don't know. And it can be more than just racial things. It could be anything, like just that whole, you know, understanding each
playing
other.
Hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Why are you doing that? Why would you even do that?
Oh, I didn't come out about that until a little in. I kept it a secret for a bit.
That was your
Didn't start playing too?
No, not yet. What? I'm still working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, there's a reason we're not interviewing him, Christie.
Yeah, I just write about him.
There you go. I'm sure he's appreciative of that. Again, he was thanked in your acknowledgements. I will let everybody know that I did see that.
So speaking of writing, you have this great book and it comes out June 20th, right?
Yeah.
What inspired you to write the book? You are a writer and you were writing about fitness because you're also a fitness guru. What made you decide to dive into hockey and make that part of your writing experience?
Well, I think number one, hockey just took over my life, basically. So that's all I was thinking about for years. And, you know, I was doing my job as a fitness professional, obviously. But hockey was just in my mind. It was there, you know, everyone's playing, everyone's doing it. I'm at hockey every day. So I started just kind of journaling, especially when things would, and I think that's why the start of the book is kind of interesting for me to read even because I'm like, oh, that was me. Because at the start I wrote a lot that like, I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm not really like that anymore. But I think that's what makes it an interesting story because it does go it is a full arc of starting out knowing nothing. And now, not that I know a lot, but I know more. And I've learned a lot through the whole thing. So I just started journaling at the start. It was years ago. It was 5 years ago. It was a long time ago. And no stress. I wasn't thinking I'm writing a book. I was just kind of like, oh, maybe this is a blog post. Maybe this is something. Because I'm just a creator. Like I love writing. I love doing videos. Like I just do that type of stuff. And so I was writing just for myself. And after about 2 years of just scribbling things down about what was happening, I was like, I think I'm gonna write a book about this. Like, does anyone want to read that? My mom's like, yeah, I think that would be awesome. She inspired me. She's a writer also. I'm like, yeah, And I spoke to a few writer friends. Like I was trying to understand. I didn't know what the story was. I just knew I'm a hockey mom. And then I started playing hockey, but like I didn't really understand. I was like, I don't know where this is going. But I just kept writing because my mom said, just keep writing. I'm like, okay. And I kept writing, and it did kind of magically turn into something. And I was like, I think I see a story here. Like I rediscovered my Canadianness through hockey, through my immigrant Egyptian husband. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's a whole story here now. And then I finished it off knowing kind of where it was going,
Right.
which was exciting. But even I look back at the start and I'm like, oh my God, that was me.
I can tell you right now that, and Christie and I both know this, so that whatever you think the book might be at the beginning, when you're finished, it's something very different. And I was going to say too, your Egyptian husband probably has a claim to the roots of the game as well, because there's a lot of history that shows that the game actually started over there. But
I'm seeing stuff just recently about all this.
Right. It really is a great journey, your book. You know, one of the things we tried to capture in the show, which you complimented us on, and I want to compliment you back, is that this show kind of has the conversations that are not being had, and it invites people to realize that they're not alone in the journey. Right.
Yes.
And that's something that I think we've really tapped into here, because we get a lot of people saying, oh, wow, you go through that too. I think your book completely captures that. And I want our audience to know that this is just a great read to know, oh, wow, this person is experiencing what I experienced. And we don't talk a lot about that. And most of the times, you know, we tend to clam up as parents, like, I can't talk to the other parents because I'm feeling so much stress right now. And it's like, no, we're all feeling that. I feel that on the bench in Mike games. So I want to applaud you on that, because you really did put something special together here. And it's not just about you playing. It's about your journey as a hockey parent, your journey as a spouse, your journey as a family, you know, in Canada. And I just love that you were able to put that all together into really a compact story that's easy to read and fun to read. And you're going to laugh while you read it. I love the part about, oh yeah, I forgot a stick. Just grab the stick. You grabbed an adult stick.
Oh my God. We did all the mistakes. Yes.
Right. Right. It's completely normal. You know, one thing I do want to ask you before we run out of time is this is a perspective question, right? We kind of alluded to it earlier. You first get on the ice, you experience things. If you've never played hockey, and by the way, any parents who have never played hockey and are not going to, totally fine. But I want Meagan to give you some insight into how hard this is the first few times you do it, because it's like learning to walk again. It's a totally different situation.
It's worse, yeah.
And to do it, to do it as an adult, you get so much perspective on what your kids are probably going through. And by the way, how easy they make it look, because the first year playing, by the end of the year, they look like superstars, right? Adults a little different. So, you know, what did you learn from playing the game? Give some perspective to our audience.
So it was very difficult. It was so hard for me and nerve-wracking, right? Being out there and having the pressure on and the puck, and oh my God, it's going to be my fault if it goes there. I play D, so I'm like, I blame myself every time there's a goal on our net. I'm like, just going through that stress.
Like the rest of us. What do you do?
I'm like, sorry. I'm always like, sorry.
Right.
There's a big sorry from me every time. She's like, it's okay. I think the stress of it actually hit me. I was like, wow, this is super stressful. Yes, it's hard. I knew it would be hard. And I've been in a lot of stressful situations, but even just walking into that change room, not knowing anyone,
right.
Going out on the ice, not really being a great skater, not knowing what I'm doing with the puck, it's nerve-wracking. And so that it gave me a bit of that also, just like I'm throwing my kid into tryouts with all these strangers, a million, you know, and we're expecting all this from him. Like, and he did it naturally and amazingly. And I look back and I'm like, I could never have done all that. Right. Like that was resilient. Crazy. Like he's 10, he's going to 10 tryouts one week, like with all these people he doesn't know and coaches saying things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't handle it when one person's like, oh, why did you do that? I'm like, oh no. And I'll think about it the whole week. Right. So yeah, it did give me that. It's such a hard skill. And a lot of us say, oh, well, it's easier for kids. And yes, it is easier for kids. Obviously it's easier I believe that. Yes, they take to it much quicker when they're little and they're just getting started. But I mean, it's still a crazy skill to have. I mean, all that skating and all and it just gave me that whole everyone used to say, oh, skating is important. Skating's so important. I'd be like, whatever. When he was playing, right? When he was like, and they're like, yeah, you know, he has really great skating. It's good. Oh, skating is like the basis. And now I play hockey and I'm like, oh my God, I need to learn to skate. Like my skating sucks. Like what is happening? And I'm like, skating is the most important. It's so important.
Yeah, it's like 80% of it's
it
that.
Really is. So it told me that, because I used to be like, oh, skating, you know how to skate. And then I'd get out there and I'd be like, oh my gosh, you need to be amazing at skating if you want to be amazing at hockey, right? So just, I guess all of that, like just stress, skills, skating, all this stuff kind of came to me, right?
I do want to say stress without parents screaming at you, coaches screaming at you, other kids screaming. This is stress you're putting on yourself.
Right. I'm all alone. Yeah.
No one's yelling, Meagan, shoot.
That's right. Sometimes.
But I just, the perspective on that is think about how much stress you feel without that. You know, your kids feel that too.
Definitely.
Kids feel
and no, like I don't usually have a ride home with someone telling me you sucked. Like what happened? Why wouldn't you get that goal?
Right.
Where were your goals?
You probably beat yourself up pretty big.
Definitely. Right? I'm like, I let that goal in, shoot. But I blast the music and I have a nice ride home. Right. Like I don't have someone like
to remember our kids do that to themselves too. They know when they've had a bad game. They
Definitely. And so we
up.
Might not need to tell them so much. We were just discussing that actually the other day. Like people know when they messed up. Like I know my teammates will say something to me. I'm like, oh, thank you. But I do know like, wow, I did a stupid thing there. Yeah, we all know when we do something strange, especially in hockey. Right away, you're like, oh shoot, that was a bad move. Oops.
And everybody saw it.
Yeah.
Now you go on live barn and watch I had an adult league player say to me, I went back on live barn and watched the goal. I'm like, you watched an adult league goal stressful. On replay? I was like, what are you doing? Another aspect that I want to jump on. Nobody plays this game, unless they love it on some level. All right. And sometimes it's a love-hate relationship, but most of the time they love it. And we always talk about on this show, especially in the younger years of hockey, but really this is universal throughout the entire time playing the game, that you really have to love this game first, even before skating. Right. So tell me how you've fallen in love with the game and how important that part of it is to you continue to do this, because look, I'm sure there was a lot of moments you were like, should I be doing this? And
a lot.
Tell me about your love for the game.
Well, I feel something's missing when I'm not playing hockey or at hockey games or around hockey. So there's that. I feel through COVID, we had a bit of that. I write a bit about that in the book. Through COVID, there was some times when we actually didn't have hockey and it was like a piece of my heart was missing. I'm like, it's hard. Like, and it's like, what's going to fill that? Like, it's so weird. And that's what showed me like, wow, I am deep in this, right? Because I've been deep in other things. Hockey was a new thing to me. And when it went away, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? What's my life? So, I love hockey, obviously, because I wouldn't keep going if I didn't, because it is hard to play adult hockey, both pain-wise and time-wise, right? When you have two kids playing hockey. So it's hard to make that time for yourself and be like, I'm going to go do this. I don't know. And just like watching it, playing it, everything, it's just a part of me now, which is interesting because it was so not a part of me a few years ago.
Right.
So it was an interesting switch, right? Going from dancer, fitness professional, like girly girl to now people, when I say that to people, they're like, you were a girly girl? Because I'm such a tomboy now. I'm literally like a total tomboy, mom of boys, like boy centric, right? And so people are like, you were girly? I'm like, I was at one point. So it's totally changed my life. I mean,
I love that you weren't afraid to change. Like, I think that's another big takeaway.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so many people are afraid to break whatever their habits are. And look, it's hard. I mean, we all deal with that, but you weren't afraid. And you said that earlier on, like, no, I like the challenge. I'm going to dive in.
By not being afraid, you discovered something about yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was beautiful for me. I was like, wow, I let this in. You know what I mean? Just, and I think sometimes that's the thing. People keep going in one way and they're like, this is what I do. This is it. I'm a mom. I do this for my job. That's all I do. And then I guess just hockey allowed me to just be like, oh, I can be other things too. I am this other persona. Right. And there's all these other elements to me. Yeah. and you know what? I think a lot of my friends say that to me. They do say, who are you?
Who are you? What happened to you?
Yeah, definitely.
I've said this to Christie before, you know, the photos of me playing, people look at this, that's you? I'm like, yeah, like you look so different out there. I'm like, yeah. Like, it's like a costume or something.
Yeah.
Meagan, before I close this out, let's just talk about advice as a hockey mom, but also as a hockey player. What is your advice to the other hockey parents out there? And then also, you know, hockey players out there, as someone who started this, you know, not later in your life, but just down the road a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm always, I don't know if I'm one to give advice. You know, you've seen the book. I've gone through a lot. I guess I have learned a lot, but I still have so much more to learn. So there's number one, I guess just always knowing that you're still learning. There'll be a book 5 years from now by me like, oh, wow, I have learned all this now.
It'll be called Hockey A again.
Yeah, number two. Like, know that you're always learning. I guess number one is I always take that with me in all realms of my life. And as a parent, for sure, especially with my two kids, they're totally opposite. They're totally different. I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to hockey with both of them, basically. One has one personality, the other has a whole other one. And yes, they're different ages, but it's a very different way to approach things. I learned through my first child so much about how to deal with hockey and kids, and it might not pertain because they're very different, but you know, I've learned a lot there. So also, of course, try skating or playing hockey. I think it's a big thing. Even if you don't go on a team and play hockey, like that might be intimidating to a lot of hockey parents who don't skate or don't play hockey. But I think just getting out there with your kids, maybe at a stick and puck, and like trying something out, try falling on your butt. Like it's fun. And also hockey has taught me that like you can fall down 1,000 times and get back up, and to expect I'm going to fall. It's okay. I'm in padded stuff. Right. I might hurt something, but you know, I haven't broken anything yet. Knock on wood.
I will knock on wood for you for that one.
Yeah, I know. It's stressful. But I think not being scared to do that, not being scared to go out and have fun with your kids on the ice, even if you're going to suck. I think a lot of parents are like, but I'm going to like fall and I'm going to look stupid. Yeah, and I'm always pulling hockey moms out. I have one on a team with me right now. I'm like, come play. Come. And she's like, oh, I've always wanted to. I'm like, okay, come. Because I didn't have that person. I didn't have that person like pulling me. Like I wanted that person. I was like, where's a woman I can go play hockey with? So now I totally encourage all hockey parents, like, come with me, come to this team, come try hockey here. So I guess that's my advice, like trying hockey, trying to see hockey through your kids' eyes, which keeping it fun is a big thing there, I think. Because like, as I say in my book, I wouldn't want to play hockey if it wasn't fun.
You do say that.
If I hated everything, if I was like, oh my God, I'm stressed and I don't like anyone here and it's not fun, my parents are screaming at me, why would I ever want to play hockey? Like, there'd be no reason.
I have been real privileged to interview a lot of professional athletes and top level people in professional sports. And they all say that one of the big common themes is those players love the game. They love it.
Right.
And if you do not have that in your late teens, it does not matter how you could have the next Connor McDavid. If he hates playing, it's not going to work out. So I love that you bring that up, and we preach that here. And most likely the people listening to the show understand that, but you have to have a love for this game and you have to enjoy it. It's not always going to be fun.
No.
All right. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, when it's taken away, what happens, right? And I was going to joke with you earlier. You said you started 5 years ago. You know, you have to carry a couple of years for the pandemic. So you actually started playing 100 years ago because the pandemic added so much time to our lives. But no, I think that's a great message. All right. It echoes, you know, no matter who we talk to on this show, right? What they're doing, you have to love the game. You have to not be afraid to try things, try and see it through your kids' eyes. I love that. Yeah. We don't do that enough. We just shout at them. what to do.
And I think we need the reminder though. I feel like, because I'm the same. I know this. We all know this. Your listeners know it probably. But that little reminder, even listening to your show every week or so, I'm like, yeah, just remember that. Remember that when you're in the car.
I'm a host on the show, and I rely on the show.
You still need to,
I tell Christie and Mike all the time, I'm so thankful that I have this show, especially last year. I'd be on the bench and I'd be like, oh my, there's that anxiety that they're always talking about. But I'm thankful because I have these lessons from these two and people like you of like, Lee, calm down, just enjoy it. I was able to do that. If no one told me that, I might have become a raging, moron out there.
We all would, right? I feel like you need that. Just reminder. Just remember.
Right. And they're just kids.
It's very easy to get caught up
in
it, especially when everyone around you is behaving like idiots. It's
there's that too, right? Yeah.
What's funny is like, we all think that. We all think that nobody thinks they're the idiot. That's the funny part.
Right. I've been the idiot. I have been the idiot, guys.
Sometimes it's us, right? It's okay. But no, this is fantastic, Megan. I want to remind everybody, okay? So first things first, if you haven't already subscribed and liked and rated the show, please do that. That helps us out a lot. Next thing, the book is out June 20th. You can pre-order it now, though. It's called Hockey A, True Confessions of a Midlife Rink Rat by Meagan Hesham. I want everyone to pick this up. I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm not just saying that because you're here. This is in no way a paid promotion. She reached out to us. We saw it. We said, yes, this is exactly the type of stuff that we like to talk about on this show. And you didn't disappoint, Megan. You're a fantastic guest. And I love that you did this. And I'm going to say this to both of you. You're both trailblazing women, but I love that you shared your story because not enough people do that. I don't think you should undersell that. Oh, I was just jotting things down. It's a big deal what you did to share this stuff. We don't do it enough. And I think that you're going to help a lot of people. You're probably going to encourage people to get into the game that never thought about playing before. And I think that that's fantastic. And I want to thank you really from the bottom of my heart for being here today, because this was wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your show. So awesome.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Christie. Sorry.
I was just going to thank her. You gave us so many good nuggets too about the importance of being a lifelong learner, the importance of being open to trying something new. And the love for hockey never dies.
That it never will. And look, that's going to do it for the episode. So for Meagan Hesham and my good friend Christie Casciano-Burns, I'm Lee Elias. You've been listening to Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure, again, if you haven't already, give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Subscribe, whatever it is that you do to help us. We appreciate it. And make sure June 20th it comes out. Check out Hockey A. That's EH ? Just in case anybody's not Canadian. True Confessions of a Midlife Rink Rat coming everywhere soon. We'll see you all on the next episode. Thanks so much for being with us. Have a great day, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.